The Awakening. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood at the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the artificial sun rise over the underground city of Nuterra. 3,000 years of hiding had changed humanity in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. The massive cavern, stretching 20 kilometers in diameter, housed the last million humans in existence, all that remained after the Concordat's devastating attack on Earth. The station's environmental systems hummed quietly, maintaining the precise balance of atmosphere and temperature that kept their subterranean world alive. Sarah's augmented vision automatically adjusted to the changing light levels, one of the many adaptations they'd developed during their long exile beneath the surface of this nameless planet at the edge of the galaxy. "Commander," a voice called from behind her, "the Council is waiting." Sarah turned to face her aide, Marcus Chen, whose dark eyes reflected the same mixture of anticipation and anxiety that she felt. Today's meeting would determine the future of their species. "How many times have I told you to call me Sarah?" she asked, managing a slight smile despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "At least once more, Commander," Marcus replied with practiced formality. The walk to the council chambers took them through the heart of Nuterra. Hydroponic gardens stretched in vertical columns, their gentle mist providing both food and atmospheric processing. Children played in designated recreation zones, their laughter echoing off the cavern walls, a sound that would have meant death centuries ago, when absolute silence was necessary to avoid detection. The council chamber itself was austere, like most things in their resource-conscious society. 12 seats arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by a leader of their various divisions: agriculture, defense, education, engineering, medical, and others. At the center stood a holographic projection of their latest discovery. "Commander Mitchell," Council Leader Helena Wong began, "Dr. Rivera's team has completed the analysis of the artifact we discovered in the deep mines last month. Doctor, please proceed." Dr. Isabella Rivera, head of their archaeological division, stepped forward. Her hands moved through the hologram, expanding certain sections as she spoke. "What we found changes everything we thought we knew about the Concordat's attack on Earth. This isn't just a historical record, it's a blueprint." The hologram shifted, showing detailed schematics of technology far beyond their current capabilities. These designs were left by a group of human scientists who knew the attack was coming. They couldn't stop it, but they managed to hide caches of advanced technology across the galaxy. "This is just the first one we found." Sarah studied the projected images with growing excitement. "Are you saying we can build these?" "With some adaptation, yes," Isabella confirmed. "But there's more." She gestured again, and the hologram showed a map of known space. The cache included detailed intelligence about the Concordat's current military positions, communication protocols, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The chamber erupted in whispered conversations. For 3 millennia, they had focused solely on survival, on staying hidden, on maintaining their small population in their underground haven. The idea of actually fighting back had been nothing more than a distant dream. Helena raised her hand for silence. "Commander Mitchell, your division of defense has been preparing for this possibility since our founding. What do you recommend?" Sarah stepped into the center of the chamber, her mind racing through years of contingency planning. "We've maintained our military readiness through simulation and training, but we've lacked the technological advantage to make any real difference. With these blueprints, we can change that. I propose Operation Phoenix." The hologram shifted again as Sarah outlined her plan. "We start small, converting our mining ships into stealth vessels using these new designs. We gather intelligence, make contact with other species who might be sympathetic to our cause. The Concordat presents itself as a benevolent federation, but we know there are other races they've subjugated. And then," Helena prompted, "then we build our forces in secret, establish hidden bases throughout the galaxy using the same techniques that have kept us safe here. When we're ready, we strike at their critical infrastructure simultaneously. Their power relies on maintaining the illusion of invincibility. We shatter that illusion. Marcus stepped forward, adding his own analysis. Our preliminary studies suggest their empire has grown complacent over the millennia. They don't expect resistance, especially not from a species they believe they destroyed 3,000 years ago. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were no longer the same humans who had fled Earth. Generations of living in secrecy, of careful resource management, of genetic engineering to adapt to their underground existence, all of it had shaped them into something new, something stronger. Helena looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. We've waited 3,000 years for this moment. Our ancestors believed in humanity's potential so much that they sacrificed everything to give us this chance. The question before us now is simple. Do we take it? Sarah watched as the council members exchanged glances. She could see the same fire in their eyes that she felt in her heart. For too long, they had lived in shadows, preserving what remained of humanity. Now they had the chance to do more than survive. They had the chance to reclaim their place among the stars. The vote was unanimous. Operation Phoenix is approved, Helena announced. Commander Mitchell, you have full authorization to proceed. May our ancestors guide us, and may the Concordat learn what humanity is truly capable of. As Sarah left the council chamber that evening, she paused again at the observation deck. The artificial sun was setting now, creating the illusion of dusk in their underground world. Soon, real stars would replace these artificial lights. Real suns would warm their faces again, and the galaxy would remember why humanity had once been feared. The discovery. The deep mines beneath New Terra echoed with the sound of drilling equipment as Dr. Isabella Rivera's team worked to uncover more of the ancient cache. 3 months had passed since Operation Phoenix's approval, and every day brought new revelations from their ancestors' hidden legacy. Isabella wiped sweat from her brow as she carefully extracted another data crystal from the excavation site. The temperature at this depth made even their environmental suits uncomfortable, but no one complained. They all understood the importance of their work. Dr. Rivera called one of her assistants. I think we found something different. Moving carefully through the narrow tunnel, Isabella made her way to where her team had exposed a new chamber. Unlike the precise technological storage areas they'd found before, this space appeared more organic, with walls that seemed to pulse with a faint, bluish light. Get me Commander Mitchell, Isabella said into her comm unit. Now. 20 minutes later, Sarah Mitchell stood beside her in the chamber, both women staring at what appeared to be a stasis pod of alien design. Inside, clearly visible through the translucent material, was a humanoid figure with iridescent skin and delicate, almost crystalline features. Is it alive? Sarah asked, her augmented vision scanning for any signs of biological activity. Isabella checked her instruments. Yes, and based on these readings, it's been here longer than our civilization has existed underground. This isn't part of the human cache. This predates it. The discovery sent shockwaves through New Terra's leadership. Within hours, a secure medical facility had been established around the stasis pod, and Dr. Kai Zhang, their leading xenobiologist, joined the research team. The being appears to be from a species we've never encountered in any of our historical records, Kai reported to the assembled council. But what's most interesting is this. He projected a genetic analysis into the air. There are similarities between their genetic structure and some of the modifications we've made to our own genome over the centuries. I don't think that's a coincidence. Helena Wong leaned forward in her council chair. Are you suggesting our ancestors found this being first? That some of our evolutionary adaptations were based on their biology? Not exactly, Isabella interjected. The data crystals we've decoded suggest something far more significant. This being belongs to a species called the progenitors. According to the records, they were the original spacefaring race in our galaxy, and they seeded many worlds with life, including Earth. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Sarah felt her mind racing with the strategic implications. The Concordat knows this, don't they? That's why they're so afraid of us. We're not just another species. We're the inheritors of the progenitor's legacy. Correct, Isabella confirmed. But there's more. The progenitors didn't just seed life. They left behind technology and knowledge for species they deemed worthy to find. The Concordat has been systematically destroying any species that shows signs of accessing this heritage. Earth wasn't the first world they destroyed, just the most recent. Marcus Chen, who had been quietly analyzing the data, spoke up. The cache wasn't just left by our ancestors. They worked with this progenitor. The technology we've been uncovering. It's a fusion of human innovation and progenitor science. Sarah turned to Dr. Zhang. Can we wake it safely? Yes, Kai replied. The stasis technology is sophisticated but compatible with our systems. The real question is, should we? Helena stood, her authority filling the chamber. We've hidden in the dark for 3,000 years, preserving what remained of humanity. Now we learn that we're part of something even greater, a legacy that spans millions of years. The Concordat feared this knowledge enough to commit genocide. I say it's time we understood why. The revival process took 3 days of careful preparation. Sarah insisted on being present, along with a full security team. When the stasis pod finally opened, the being inside awakened with a grace that seemed almost choreographed. Its first words, transmitted directly into their minds, stunned everyone present. The children of Earth have finally returned. We have much work to do. The progenitor, who called itself Meridian, spent the next several hours sharing information that transformed their understanding of galactic history. The Concordat, it explained, was not the natural evolution of spacefaring societies coming together. It was an artificially created construct designed to prevent any species from achieving the full potential the progenitors had envisioned. Your adaptation to underground life, Meridian observed, studying the humans around it, was not just about survival. Each change brought you closer to accessing abilities that were always dormant in your species. Abilities the Concordat fears. Sarah felt something stir in her mind. A sense of connection she'd never experienced before. Around her, she could see others experiencing the same sensation. Their centuries of genetic adaptation hadn't just helped them survive underground. They'd awakened something that had been sleeping in human DNA since the beginning. The technology in the cache, Meridian continued, was meant to be found when you were ready. Your ancestors understood this and worked to preserve it. But you'll need more than technology to face what's coming. The Concordat knows you survived. They've always known. They've been preparing for this confrontation as long as you have. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. If they've known all along, why haven't they attacked? Meridian's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. Because they fear what you might become more than what you are. Every year you survived made you stronger, more adapted, more capable of reaching your true potential. They've been building weapons to fight what they believe you are. They're not prepared for what you've actually become. As if to demonstrate, Meridian reached out mentally, connecting with every human in the room. In that moment, they experienced what their species could truly achieve, not just technological advancement, but evolution beyond anything they'd imagined. The ability to connect minds, to manipulate energy, to perceive reality on levels their ancestors couldn't have comprehended. Operation Phoenix, Sarah said slowly, needs to be completely redesigned. We're not just fighting for revenge or survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of all sentient life in the galaxy. Yes, Meridian agreed. But first, you need to understand who you really are. And who else might stand with us. You're not the only species the Concordat has tried to suppress. There are others, hiding just like you, waiting for the moment to strike back. As Sarah left the medical facility that evening, she felt the weight of this new knowledge settling over her. Humanity hadn't just survived. They'd been transforming themselves all along, becoming something new, something that could challenge the very foundations of galactic power. The infiltration. 6 months after Meridian's awakening, The first human stealth ship in 3 millennia slipped through the darkness between stars. The vessel, christened Shadow of Terra, represented everything humanity had become: adaptive, resilient, and now invisible to even the most advanced Concordat detection systems. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge, her newly awakened abilities allowing her to sense her crew's nervous excitement. The ship itself was a marvel, combining human ingenuity with progenitor principles. Its hull didn't just absorb scanning beams, it bent space itself around the vessel, making them effectively ghost-like. Approaching Nexus Station, her navigation officer reported, "Their traffic control hasn't detected us." Nexus Station was a sprawling trading hub on the edge of Concordat space, where species from across the galaxy gathered to exchange goods and information. It was also their first target for Operation Phoenix's intelligence gathering phase. Maya touched the neural interface at the base of her skull, connecting directly with the ship's systems. Through it, she could feel every aspect of the vessel, from its revolutionary engines to the quantum communications array that would keep them linked to New Terra. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Deploy the infiltration team." In the ship's launch bay, Sarah Mitchell checked her biomimetic suit one final time. The technology, refined under Meridian's guidance, would allow her to appear as any of the common species that frequented the station. More importantly, it would mask the changes humanity had undergone, hiding their evolved abilities from Concordat sensors. "Remember," Sarah addressed her team, "we're not here to engage. Our mission is to identify potential allies and establish initial contacts. Marcus, you're with me. The rest of you know your assignments." The shuttle that delivered them to the station was perfectly ordinary, its documentation flawless. To anyone watching, they appeared to be a group of Rylaxian traders, a species known for their mercantile pursuits and political neutrality. Nexus Station was a cacophony of life and commerce. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species moved through its curved corridors and vast marketplaces. But beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful commerce, Sarah could sense undercurrents of tension and fear. Using their enhanced abilities, Sarah and her team could perceive the subtle indicators Meridian had taught them to recognize: species showing signs of suppressed evolutionary potential, individuals whose genetic makeup suggested they too were descendants of progenitor-seeded worlds. "There," Marcus whispered, indicating a group of tall, graceful beings with shifting color patterns on their skin. Avalonian. According to Meridian's records, they were approaching a technological renaissance when the Concordat imposed trade restrictions that crippled their development. Sarah nodded, extending her consciousness carefully toward the Avalonians. Their minds were complex, layered with the same kind of potential she now recognized in her own species. More importantly, she could sense their deep resentment toward the Concordat. Over the next several hours, the team spread through the station, gathering intelligence and making subtle contact with potential allies. They discovered that the Concordat's facade of benevolent leadership masked a systematic campaign of suppression that spanned millennia. In a quiet corner of a lower-level bar, Sarah made their first official contact. The Avalonian trader, who called herself Lyra, didn't seem surprised when Sarah revealed their true identity. "We've had legends," Lyra said softly, her skin rippling with patterns of deep blue and gold, "of the humans who escaped the Concordat's judgment. Some of us hoped you would return." She leaned forward, her voice dropping even lower. "We are not alone. There are others, many others, who remember what we were meant to become." "How many species would stand with us?" Sarah asked. "At least a dozen major civilizations, and many smaller ones. We've been waiting, watching, preparing in our own ways. But we needed a catalyst." Lyra's colors shifted to a deep, determined purple. "Perhaps you are that catalyst." Back on the Shadow of Terra, Maya received reports from all infiltration teams. The pattern was clear. The Concordat's control was far more fragile than they had imagined. Species across the galaxy have been quietly resisting in their own ways, preserving ancient knowledge and maintaining underground networks of communication. Sarah's final meeting was with a being who appeared to be a simple station maintenance worker. In reality, he was a member of the Solarian Assembly, a species whose natural ability to manipulate solar energy had been systematically suppressed by the Concordat. "Your return changes everything," he told her, his eyes glowing faintly with internal fire. The Concordat's greatest weapon has always been isolation, making each species feel they were alone in their resistance. But now they face a united opposition, Sarah finished, one that understands its true potential. When the shadow of Terra finally departed Nexus Station, it carried with it more than just intelligence. It carried hope, not just for humanity's revenge, but for the liberation of countless civilizations. In her quarters, Sarah compiled her report for the Council. The data they'd gathered painted a picture of a galaxy on the brink of change. The Concordat's power was built on suppression and fear, but those foundations were cracking. "The question isn't whether we can find allies," she wrote. "The question is whether we're ready to lead them. Humanity's evolution hasn't just given us power, it's given us responsibility. We thought we were preparing for revenge. Instead, we're preparing for revolution." A message from Meridian waited in her coup. The pieces are in motion. The Concordat senses something has changed, but they don't yet understand what. We must move quickly now. The next phase will determine everything. As Sarah looked out at the star-filled void, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Humanity had hidden for 3 millennia, evolving and preparing. Now they were about to step onto the galactic stage, not just as survivors, but as liberators. The uprising was about to begin. The uprising. In the heart of New Terra's command center, Sarah Mitchell stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, watching as countless points of light pulsed with growing intensity. Each light represented a resistance cell, activated over the past 3 months, since their mission to Nexus Station. The network they'd discovered had grown beyond their most optimistic projections. The Concordat still hasn't realized the full scope of what's happening, Marcus reported, his fingers dancing through the holographic controls. They're treating each incident as isolated unrest. Operation Phoenix had evolved into something far greater than a simple revenge mission. Under Meridian's guidance, humanity had become the coordinators of a galaxy-wide liberation movement. Their evolved abilities allowed them to communicate securely across vast distances, coordinating with resistance groups from dozens of species. "Signal from the Avalonian network," Lieutenant Chen announced. "They're ready to begin Phase 1. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Send the authorization code. It's time." Across the galaxy, carefully planned operations began simultaneously. On the Concordat's primary shipyards, Solarian infiltrators activated their suppressed abilities, using their solar manipulation powers to trigger cascading reactor failures. In the massive data centers that maintain the Concordat's communication networks, Avalonian technicians introduced subtle errors into the command protocols. The shadow of Terra, now joined by a fleet of similarly equipped vessels, moved silently through Concordat space. Each ship carried mixed crews, humans working alongside other liberated species, combining their unique abilities in ways the Concordat had never anticipated. On the bridge of her ship, Maya Rodriguez felt the combined consciousness of her crew working in perfect harmony. The progenitor's gift wasn't just genetic potential, it was the ability to form deep, instantaneous connections across species barriers. Multiple targets acquired, her tactical officer, a Solarian named Helios, reported. Concordat defense platforms are still blind to our presence. "Execute primary sequence," Maya ordered. Across the sector, dozens of automated defense platforms, the Concordat's first line of defense, suddenly went dark. The virus they'd planted, combining human AI technology with Avalonian data manipulation, spread through the network like a digital wildfire. Back in New Terra, Meridian worked with the Council, sharing insights that had been hidden for millions of years. The Concordat's greatest weakness, the ancient being explained, is their rigid hierarchy. They cannot comprehend a truly decentralized resistance. Sarah received updates from across the galaxy. The Rylaxian trade networks, secretly sympathetic to their cause, had begun disrupting critical supply lines. The Solarian Assembly had reactivated ancient solar temples, using them to broadcast energy patterns that interfered with Concordat sensors. But it was the psychological impact that proved most devastating. As news of successful operations spread, more species began awakening to their suppressed potential. The Concordat's carefully maintained narrative of superior power began to crumble. Multiple Concordat battle groups are mobilizing, Marcus reported, studying the tactical displays. They're trying to respond, but their command structure is compromised. They can't coordinate effectively. Sarah touched her neural interface, connecting with the vast network of resistance leaders. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Across Concordat space, seemingly loyal civilian ships suddenly revealed their true nature. Centuries of quiet preparation paid off as hidden weapons activated and security systems failed. The Concordat's military found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere, using technologies and abilities they had thought long suppressed. On 1,000 worlds, populations that had lived under Concordat control for generations rose up. The carefully maintained illusion of peaceful galactic governance shattered as species after species reclaimed their heritage. "They're falling back to their core systems," Maya reported from the front lines. "But something's wrong. Their retreat is too organized." Sarah felt a chill as new data flooded in. "They're activating their contingency protocols," she realized. "Meridian, what are we looking at?" The progenitor's mental voice carried a note of grave concern. "They've maintained a final option. Technology designed to suppress all advanced abilities across the galaxy. They would rather reset all civilizations to a primitive state than lose control." "Can they do that?" Helena asked from the council chamber. "They can try," Meridian replied. "But they don't understand what humanity has become. Your evolution wasn't just about developing new abilities. It was about transcending the very limitations they seek to impose." Sarah made her decision. "All forces converge on these coordinates. The Concordat wants a final battle. We'll give them one they'll never forget." The Liberation Fleet, now numbering thousands of ships from dozens of species, began moving toward the Concordat's core systems. Each vessel carried crews who had learned to combine their unique abilities in ways that created entirely new possibilities. They thought they could control evolution itself. Sarah addressed the assembled fleet. They thought they could decide which species were worthy of advancement. But they forgot something fundamental. Life finds a way. Not just to survive, but to thrive, to grow, to become more than what came before. As the fleet prepared for its final push, Sarah felt the combined consciousness of countless beings united in purpose. Humanity had spent 3,000 years hidden in the dark, but they hadn't just been hiding. They had been becoming something new, something that could light the way for others. The real revolution wasn't about destroying the Concordat. It was about freeing every species to reach their true potential. The final battle was about to begin. The reckoning. The space around the Concordat's capital system blazed with energy as two visions of the galaxy's future collided. The Liberation Fleet, a testament to cooperation between formerly suppressed species, faced the full might of the Concordat's defensive forces. From the command deck of the flagship Novaterra, Sarah Mitchell coordinated the combined fleet's movements through the neural network that connected all resistance forces. The Concordat had expected to face a disorganized rebellion. Instead, they confronted an army that moved with singular purpose, each species contributing their unique abilities to a greater whole. "They're activating the suppression device," Marcus reported, his enhanced senses detecting the subtle distortions in spacetime. "Energy readings are off the charts." At the heart of the Concordat's capital world, a massive structure began to pulse with ominous light. 3 millennia of preparation had led to this moment, their final solution to maintain control over galactic evolution. "All ships, initiate protocol ascendance," Sarah ordered. Across the fleet, Crews that had trained for this moment began the synchronized activation of progenitor-derived technology integrated with their vessels. Meridian's voice echoed through the neural network. Remember what you have become. The Concordat thinks in terms of suppression and control. Show them what true evolution means. The suppression wave erupted from the capital world, a cascading field of energy designed to disable advanced abilities across the galaxy. But as it reached the Liberation Fleet, something unprecedented occurred. Human crew members, their DNA transformed by centuries of adaptation, acted as living conductors. Attalonian data manipulators reshaped the energy patterns. Solarian energy masters redirected the massive power flows. What was meant to be a wave of suppression became a catalyst for transformation. They don't understand. Maya transmitted from the shadow of Terra. They've spent so long trying to prevent evolution that they forgot its true nature. It's not about the destination. It's about the capacity to change, to adapt, to become more. The combined consciousness of the Liberation Fleet reached out, not just resisting the suppression wave, but reshaping it. Centuries of hidden development, of quiet preparation, of species discovering their true potential in secret, culminated in this moment. Sarah felt the power flow through the neural network, a symphony of minds working in perfect harmony. Now, she commanded, show them what we've really become. The transformed energy wave rebounded toward the Concordat capital, carrying with it not suppression but awakening. Across the battlefield, Concordat crews found themselves experiencing the very evolutionary leaps they had fought so long to prevent. Their shields are failing, Marcus reported. Their entire command structure is in chaos. On the capital world, the ruling council of the Concordat faced the ultimate irony of their actions. The power they had sought to suppress was now awakening within their own people. Centuries of genetic potential, artificially held dormant, burst into life. This was always the true purpose Meridian shared through the network. Not to destroy, but to transform. The progenitors didn't seed the galaxy with life so it could be controlled. They did it so it could grow, change, become more than what came before. The battle shifted from physical combat to something more profound. Ship by ship, world by world, the rigid structure of the Concordat began to transform. Those who had been enforcers of suppression became participants in an unprecedented awakening. Sarah opened a channel to all forces. For 3,000 years, humanity hid in the darkness, not just surviving but evolving. We learned that true strength isn't about domination. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and growth. Today, we don't just end the Concordat's rule. We begin something new. The remaining Concordat forces, their crews awakening to new possibilities, began standing down. The suppression device, its energy completely transformed, pulsed one final time before going dark forever. In the aftermath, representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the former Concordat capital. The galaxy would need a new way forward, one that embraced evolution and change rather than fearing it. We don't seek to rule, Sarah addressed the gathered assembly. Humanity's role isn't to replace the Concordat, but to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens to another world. Our path forward must be one of cooperation, of shared growth, of helping each species discover their own potential. Meridian, standing beside her, added, "The age of suppression is over. The age of ascendance begins." As Sarah looked out over the assembled beings, she saw not just the end of a 3,000-year journey, but the beginning of something far greater. Humanity had emerged from the darkness not as conquerors or avengers, but as catalysts for change. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that had been the point all along. In the centuries that followed, the story of humanity's return would be told differently by each species. Some focused on the military victory, others on the technological achievements. But the truth was both simpler and more profound. It was a story of evolution, not just of bodies and minds, but of spirit. A story of how a species driven into darkness had emerged transformed, carrying with them the light of change for all. The end.